stick. And you know some people.
Hello everyone and welcome to my review of Detroit, directed by Kathryn Bigelow. So, Detroit, I didn't even know much about this movie until it was sort of on the listings for the cinema. I was looking for something to go and watch, so I thought, yeah, I'll go and watch that. And there was a few people, there was a few people in it that I thought would be quite good in it, so yeah, I thought I'd give it a watch. And I had no idea it was directed by Kathryn Bigelow until I actually watched it. I've never seen a Kathryn Bigelow film before. No, and it makes me want to watch her other movies. So, the plot of Detroit, and this is obviously based on the true story. Amidst the chaos of the Detroit Rebellion, with the city under curfew, and as the Michigan National Guard patrolled the streets, 3 young African-American men were murdered at the Algee motel. And it kind of goes on from there, really. It goes on, deals with the actual interrogation that happened at the hotel, and then the trial, and the repercussions of that at the trial with the police officers and with the suspects. And that is essentially your plot of Detroit. So, Detroit, I had no idea what to expect going into this movie. I can safely say I was very surprised. This movie is fucking intense. It's just intense. There's no other way to describe it. I mean, the first like hour of the movie kind of builds up to it, but actually, in essence, there's a kind of build, but there's also an element of them kind of throwing you into it, and that's what I like about that. You know, you see the development of these riots and how it gets out of control, and you know, obviously, Bigelow uses archive footage as well, so we do see some actual footage recorded during those riots. So, you know, it's really kind of well, harrowing to watch. It's kind of hard to watch in the mindset of the film, obviously, because you know that it actually happened, and the film is just a recreation of that. It is a dramatization, so you're kind of looking at it from a different perspective. But when you see the archive footage, it's like, oh wow, this was major shit, and it went down. So yeah, I really enjoyed this film. I think it's very clear to see that Kathryn Bigelow is very good at these sort of things. She has a clear, like, she's done her research, and there's obviously at the huge center of this, it is a race relations story. The fact that black people were being targeted just for who they are, really, and it's horrible to watch. I mean, you know, there are a couple of police officers I felt like fucking punched them in the face. You know, I mean, it's hard to watch, and I'm sure they'll. I mean, it also shows how far we've come now. So we should be glad that times are not like back then, where, you know, everything was incredibly racist. We can coexist, well, fairly harmoniously, I would say. So it was really horrible to see all these black people getting beaten. It's quite brutal. It's not extremely brutal, but it is quite brutal, and you do see a lot of beatings and murders. There's one particular very long interrogation scene with the Will Poulter's character, the police officer, and his 2 cronies are interrogating the are interrogating the people. They're even interrogating the 2 white girls that are with them there as well. So yeah, that was really
interesting. You have quite a lot of big names in this movie. You have Will Poulter, obviously. He's good. He's aged quite a lot. You know, he still looks quite young. His voice, he's really... I've only seen him in... I think he's in Son of Rambo. Yeah, he was good in that. And The Chronicles of Narnia, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, he was in that. But he's grown up. That was 7 years ago. So his voice has changed quite a lot. So he sounds a lot more grown up. He sounds older than he looks. So he's very good. And he gives a very captivating performance as the policeman who's interrogating these people. John Boyega is in this movie as well. He plays a policeman, Dismukes, I believe, and he's kind of like, he's seeing what's going on and he doesn't like it, and he's he's trying not to, you know, let himself get into trouble, but he's trying to help. He's trying to help the black people. So I like that, and I think his character's great. The two girls are good as well. I mean, they definitely they give very emotional performances. It's a very emotionally brutal film. It just throws you in, and it doesn't stop until the end. I will say though, I don't think it's perfect. I do have a couple of issues with this movie. I think the opening animation sequence is completely unnecessary. Like, why? They could have just had the text on screen, fade in, fade out. It's simple. You didn't need to do this big animation sequence. So they're moving. I can't describe the animation, but it's like kind of like a mural sort of thing. It just doesn't look right. It's like, what? You don't need that. So I thought that they could have just cut that out completely. And I do have to say the movie is a little bit too long. It's about 2 hours 23 minutes. I think some of it could have been condensed. Maybe that interrogation scene is an incy bit too long, but I still thought it was pretty damn intense. I was kind of sitting there, you know, biting my finger, like, oh fuck, it was really intense. There's no way to really review this movie without saying it's intense. You just need to see it, especially if you're a black person as well. This is a very interesting gaze for you to watch. Bigelow isn't obviously not a black person, at least to my knowledge. I don't think she is, no. So to have this be directed by a white woman is kind of it's kind of interesting. I mean, I don't know how she did it really. It's quite intense. I think all the performances are great. As I said, John Boyega, Will Poulter, Anthony Mackie's in the film as well. He's very good. There's not much to say really. The writing's good. I think the script is very solid. I love the use of archive footage. As I said, the film just throws you in there. There's, you know, I mean, I do also like the moments of like relief we get. It's not completely depressing. You know, we get this character named Larry. He's trying to set up a band called the Dramatics. You know, as we know, they're a very famous band, but of course, if you know your history, Larry did not stay with the band. He decided to, because of the experience and how it affected him emotionally. He just retired to being a choir master to stay out of the way of the police force, and I don't blame him really. I mean, obviously, who would turn down a record deal that big? But for his own safety, he thought he can't be a part of the band. And I believe the Dramatics are still around today. Well, according to the film, they are anyway. So yeah, it's a very intense film. It's quite brutal. It's very harrowing. Her direction is excellent. Kathryn Bigelow. Her direction is great. As I said, my only real complaints with this movie are it is a little bit too long, and the animation sequence at the very start of the movie is just completely random and unnecessary. I don't see why they couldn't just have the text on its own in front of a black screen. That just, given the brutal nature of this film, it would have been much more effective. So yeah, I can't quite give this a perfect score, so I am going to give Detroit a very good 9 out of 10. Yeah, and I want to just, you know, just shout out to everyone who worked on this film. It was a great experience. I mean, I wasn't in the screen with many people. There was barely anyone in there. So, please, I urge people to show their support for these movies. Well, for this movie, sorry. I urge people to show support for this movie. Go and see it. Just please go and watch it, because it deserves to be seen on the big screen. You need to see it. If you're especially if you're a black person, you'll be curious enough to go and see it. To see, you know, I mean, not to bring back any bad memories, but just to see how the vision of a white person, because this is a white person's gaze, a white person directing this. This is her interpretation of what happened. It might not necessarily be completely 100% accurate, but it's probably more or less accurate. So yeah. Okay, that's pretty much it, guys. That's my review of Detroit. What do you think of this movie? Please comment down below, let me know. Stay tuned when I review Logan Lucky. So until then, thank you guys all for watching, and as always, I'm Mr. TARDIS11. See ya.